Okay, so we're finally reviewing Maisey Yates, A Tall, Dark Cowboy Christmas. Now, she's one of my favorite authors. She draws you in with such detail and such depth to the characters that if you've read it before, it's like you're reading it again for the first time. Yeah, I got my readers on. So, anyway, it's Christmas in Gold Valley, and this wounded widower is about to get another shot at love. Grant Dodge didn't expect to find a woman sleeping in an abandoned cabin on his family's ranch, or to find her so intriguing, unlike every other woman in town. McKenna Tate doesn't know that Grant's a widower. There's no pity in the looks she gives him. McKenna wants him, and Grant has forgotten what it's like to feel like a man. No strings fling, Christmas might be the kind of holiday cheer that Grant needs. With only a suitcase to her name, McKenna came to Gold Valley to confront her birth father. She didn't plan to work at Dodge Ranch or fall for the gorgeous cowboy who keeps her heart roped off. Or keeps his heart roped off. That's what you get when you read fast. But there's no denying the way the broken pieces fit together. Hope brought her to Hope Valley. But will it be the gift that can finally heal Grant and McKenna's own wounded hearts? Okay, so what did I really take away from this story? Well, we're going to hit the little paper clip marked things, and then we'll go to the book review itself. Okay, page 20. Not that she ever run from someone, but she'd given up on counting on men to take care of her. The only ended one way, and it was all bumped along nicely for a while, and then inevitably exploded, and she was left with less than what she had before. Always. Let me take that clip off. Page 70. The fact that your life could change completely, look nothing like you wanted it to, and you could do nothing but go on living. Grant married his high school sweetheart, and he kept telling everybody how much his high school sweetheart made him a changed man, which I think she did. And I think that if you love someone, that part of you is always with that person, whether it's in the present, past, or future. Whoops, there went that clip. And anyway, I think that the relationship that he had with his wife, who was very ill with cancer, and he married her knowing she was going to die. But Grant had lost so much. Grant had lost his mother, he lost his wife, and then he was just like, I'm done loving because I have that fear that if I love, they're going to die. And he didn't want that. He didn't want that chance of a risk of losing his heart to someone that would leave him. Whether it was, well, in both cases, they were loss of life. And he felt like that would just keep happening, and he didn't want that. In McKenna's case, she was in a foster home, given away by her mother, and she was in search of her family. And she decided to go to the area where she knew her family would be at. She didn't realize that this abandoned cabin was owned by this other family, and that when Grant would find her, that everything would just not exactly fit into place, but eventually over time fit into place. On page 74. Come on, she said, reaching past him and grabbing a cup of coffee and her elbow brushing against his solid midsection. She clenched her teeth, trying not to think about how solid his midsection was. Mistakes are like walnuts in the cookies of life. What does that mean? It would be better without them, but somehow they end up in there half the time anyway. The corner of his mouth twitched, lifted upward slightly. McKenna's heart leaped in a half-foot response. She didn't know why she was reacting to him. He was hot. Big deal. Men were often hot. Sure, but not commonly as hot as this one. But whatever. Of course, there was no reason to be too guarded with him. He'd always been nice to her, and anyway, it was better for her if he liked her or whatever his version of liking someone might be. Careful, she said. You almost smiled at me. Won't happen again. She arched a brow. Does that make your smile a mistake, Grant? No, he said, just an unplanned facial tic. Damn, you're a hard case. Not the first time I've heard that one. And it's just, that part was cute to me. Move on. Page 82. Life is not fair, Grant, not even close. Yeah, I'm actually familiar with that principle. Again, she didn't ask. It was strange because he was asking her quite a few questions, more than she had expected a guy like him to ask. Certainly, but she could tell the reserve would not be welcome. Well, then we understand each other to a degree. I don't expect life to be fair, and that's why I'm giving up the unexpected charity. I don't give up a fuss. I've had enough of the alternative to know that something as good is going to cross my path. I'm going to take it forever, how long it lasts. Pretty solid principle to live by, he said. I haven't got a whole ton of a lot of principles, but the ones I do have served me pretty well. She dipped her long-handled roller into the tray of paint and moved it back and forth a few times, sliding it through the ridge part of the tray to get rid of the excess. Anywhere? She said. Anywhere, he responded. And they began to paint the barn. We're going to move on. But then if it hadn't been for a different man, she wouldn't have felt like this. There was a reason she hadn't been with anyone in a couple of years. She was sick of all the ridiculous nonsense that men came with. The way that a nice relationship turned into a series of transactions and that faded out into boredom before the guy abandoned her. There was always hope in the beginning. That was one of the things she hated about herself. She could never quite squash that out. She knew that women could. And at that last diner she worked at, there had been a whole crew of women on swing shift who had been shiny and sharp like the Poseidon. Pretty, but hard. We're going to move on. Page 91. People end up in weird situations, McKenna. Situations they didn't plan on. All the damn time. And anyone who doesn't think that, they're just scared. They can't stand the idea that they might find themselves homeless trying to find a cabin to sleep in someone else's property. If they don't blame some kind of moral failing in you, then that's what keeps you from suffering something that puts them in the exact same place. It's that same with a lot of life's crap. Sickness. People always want to know what you did. If you prayed hard enough, if your whole body was alkaline, or if you ate enough kale. They all want to believe that in the end they would have been able to do something. And most of all, they want to believe that somehow you deserve something that they don't. Fact of the matter is, I'm not sure any of us deserve to have it good or bad, that things just happen to us, that they just happen. So I don't judge you in the grand scheme of things. I don't have a whole lot of reasons to pity you either. McKenna blinked. Well, my mother abandoned me. I'm sorry about that. His face stayed the same, shade beautiful, neutral as it always was. But you don't feel sorry for me? If I did, would it change anything? She frowned. It might affirm my feelings. Gotta turn the page here, see if I marked it. His brows were unreadable. You don't need your feelings affirmed. You just need to decide what you're going to do. Well, I'm here, so obviously I've made some decisions. She didn't like the fact that he had now graduated to lecturing her. In fact, she preferred a little mindless pity over this. Let's go on. So now they're having a discussion about the late wife, if he's really ready to move on, and things are getting deep between the two. I think anyone who had love is like you had is blessed, McKenna finally said on page 297. To have someone who love you, remember you at your best, even when they seen you at your worst, that must be an amazing thing. They stood there for a while, and he noticed McKenna dashing tears away from her cheek discreetly. "You don't have to cry," he said. "Well, you're not crying," she said. Her voice was breaking, "and someone has to. I cried mine out a long time ago. These aren't for her. These are for you." And he squeezed her hand and told her that they could go. They walked back in silence, and his hands were leaving the empty everything except McKenna, leaving the poinsettia behind, feeling like something significant this year, like he actually left something bigger there. And maybe it was because McKenna had come with him. He didn't know. He felt a little bit lighter, not happy. The gravity of where they had been, of those memories, didn't allow for anything quite like that, but it was his heart that was buried beneath a pile of stones, and maybe he had just taken off one on the top. Okay. The last paper clip before I get a rating here, and I know you all are anxious. The important thing is how you love people. That's what makes you a man. It's what makes you matter. And for her part, McKenna was going to love herself enough to walk away now. She went into the hall and down the stairs, stopping one at the rodeo posters with Hank Dalton emblazoned on the big red letters. She traced over it with her fingertips and then put her hand back down at the side. She wasn't going to cry, not after that. She wandered into the living room where she found Gabe and Grant sitting. "I'm ready to go." "What happened?" Grant asked, almost leaping to his feet. She felt like she was being pulled down to the floor. Not her sadness was weighing her down, but what was beneath the earth tugging her through it. "It's just not going to work out." Gabe was frozen. His expression was severe. "What did he say?" "He doesn't want to hurt your mother like this, Gabe, and he offered me money, but I just don't want it. I just want to go." "It's not his choice," Gabe said. "You might be his daughter, but you're our sister. He can't decide whether you go or not. We have to acknowledge you. Now that we have a chance to make some of the mistakes right, we have a say in it." "I don't want to do that," she shook her head. "Can't you understand that? I don't want to be a bomb that blows your family apart because I want so badly to find a place in it. I wouldn't be able to stand coming here and having your dad angry and your mother hurt. I don't want to be in a halfway in. Maybe that makes me selfish. Maybe a sad little foster kid shouldn't have already had those kind of situations. But I already know what it's like not to be wanted. In excess. I'm not going through it again. I can't. Thank you, Gabe, for everything you did." She turned and walked out to the truck, and that was when she was dissolved. The first tear fell, and she couldn't stop it. Then another, then another. By the time she got into the passenger side, she was crying like a little girl who lost her dad. Because she had. Now, I'm going to review the book. The first book is an astounding story. And it talks about loss of love, yes, but do you fight the fear to find love again? Or do you have the love and yet you're scared to love because of your past? It's all about fear overcoming it. And I honestly believe it's a good story to read now, anytime, not just during the Christmas holiday season. So A Tall Dark Cowboy Christmas by Maisey Yates gets an 8.5. So you want to check that story out. Like I said, I'm reading the second one. There will not be a book review on it because it's not that great. I'm not impressed with it. But it is what it is. When I get to reading another book that I am impressed by, you will get a book review on it. So with that being said, stay tuned to see what book is in the future. After this, of course. And I will do a book review on it. And I know you're all anxiously awaiting because you love to watch my book reviews. And I didn't get that intense, but this book was not so much about intense as it was about the passion of loss of love to finding love, to going, is it okay to move on? You know, would his wife want him to find someone else? Because, you know, in sickness and health, till death do they part. But in the marriage vows, does it not say, till death do you part? And would she have wanted him to find someone else? All these burning questions. I want you to read the book to find out how it goes. Will McKenna and Grant find happiness in each other? Only one way to find out. Read the book. See you tomorrow.